Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. In this video I wanted to share my thoughts and my score and my opinion about 4 Calendar Cafe from Cocteau Twins, their 7th album from 1993. This was actually my introduction to Cocteau Twins back in 1993. This is the first album I ever heard from. So it does, when you compare different Cocteau Twins albums, and it's really hard. I think a lot of times what I find when I see a lot of people's opinion about Cocteau Twins, about what their favorite album is, it seems to be when they kind of come into that first or second album, whenever they came into their discography or their catalog, what time, like if they came in at Victoria Land, maybe that's their favorite, but there's generally I wouldn't say like a peak, but there's generally like an agreement that, some of their earlier albums is sort of their most raw and their most ethereal and in some ways their best, but then you have some people that think like Heaven in Las Vegas is their best, which is definitely up there, and that sort of blends into 4 Calendar Cafe as well in some ways. And so there's always that period, that those people that think the early stuff is great, and then some people think like Heaven in Las Vegas is the best album. That seems to be the general consensus that I get from a lot of people, that those are, one of their early albums, either Garland's or Victoria Land or maybe Bluebell Knoll, or somebody will like Heaven in Las Vegas or maybe even 4 Calendar Cafe. Those seems to be the ones, but they're so tough to rate, and I knew going into rating Cocteau Twins album, I knew it was going to be a challenge just to kind of place them. And as I start to do reviewing their albums, it starts to become a little bit more clear of which ones I do like the best. But they're just phenomenal albums, and it's just kind of fun to kind of choose and kind of debate like which ones are which albums are the best, which songs are their best. And this is the third time that I've featured Cocteau Twins on this channel. I rated Bluebell Knoll, their 5th album, I rated that a 74 out of 100, so I thought that was a very good album, kind of right in the middle. And then I rated Heaven in Las Vegas, so I went to one of the strongest ones, one of my favorite ones, and I rated that an 80. And so I think that's an excellent album, a genre classic for Shoegaze and Cocteau Twins. Definitely going to be one of the top 2 or 3 albums, I would think, from my perspective. If I had to guess, maybe top 2 or 3 kind of going into 4 Calendar, because I knew 4 Calendar was going to be one of the top ones. And, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier about when you kind of come into a band. Like if you're a big Depeche Mode fan and you came on Black Celebration, that's probably going to be your favorite album. If you're a little bit younger and you came in on Songs of Faith and Devotion, maybe that's your favorite album. If you're new to Depeche Mode, maybe you like their newer stuff. That seems to happen a lot, that kind of nostalgic, but also you played those albums so much as you really loved the band, like those first couple albums. And so in some ways that, that becomes like your favorite album of that favorite period. And for me, with Cocteau Twins, Heaven in Las Vegas and 4 Calendar was my favorite, because I first heard 4 Calendar Cafe. That was my first Cocteau Twins album, and immediately I went back and got Heaven in Las Vegas. And then maybe a few years later, I ended up getting their older stuff. So at the end, I'll talk a little bit about my comparison between Heaven in Las Vegas and 4 Calendar Cafe, just because they're kind of similar favorites for me, and they're right after each other. So I'll kind of tell you what my thoughts are, and maybe why somebody else would choose one of the other albums, or which album better. It might be dependent on these things that I think is my differences for comparing the two. When I go from song by song, the first track, Know Who You Are at Every Age, I think everybody agrees, and I'll definitely agree myself, that this is one of their best openers of any album, I feel like. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful ballad. It does. I do feel like it ends a little short. I do want it to go on a little bit longer, but that happens a lot with Cocteau Twins songs. I always kind of think they're a little bit too short, but in a perfect way when you think about it, and you really kind of like, it makes. They seem to be the perfect length sometimes. I mean, most of the time, at least. It's just like makes you want to play them more often, I guess. That's kind of like, they're not they're not they're not a band that drags on a song where you're like, oh, this is like 5, 6, 7 minutes, and you're like, this is this is too many times in the chorus, or this part of the instrumental has gone on too long. They just seem so great at making perfect pop, shimmering pop music. It's just in a way, and it's just they just do such a good job of it of not overdoing anything, and all their albums are just really tight, and even though Four Calendar is one of my favorite, I do think there's better paced albums in their career. I love the songwriting on this particular album. I'll kind of go into that a little bit at the end, but there's some great songs on Four Calendar Cafe. I probably love this album the most, as far as like as many songs. Like I don't have any song under a 7. Like in this whole album, I think they're all very good and above. I rate them all as 7 above. There's no song on here that I think is just good. I think they all have some terrific moments and some really inspirational. I think this is one of the most inspirational, one of the best jobs Liz has done. Liz Frazier with her voice on this, she seems really powerful and really confident in this, and maybe that has to do with him and the other guy breaking up, and her feeling like a little bit more confident at this stage. Excuse me. It's under my impression that they kind of had some trouble and they were kind of broke up maybe a little bit after Heaven in Las Vegas, somewhere in that period. Or maybe it was just after this album, but maybe I feel like she's really kind of gaining confidence. And maybe that has nothing to do with their relationship or coming out of it or feeling stronger about it. But, I mean, you can just tell, like, from these songs, and maybe it's the way that they're a couple of them are a little bit more poppy. Like she's just really feeling confident, and the way that she's layering her vocals on here, and she's almost doing double work on a lot of these tracks. Sometimes she's in the foreground, sometimes she's in the background. It's just amazing vocal performance, and very inspirational as well. Very moving. Definitely some tracks that really kind of. I Know Who You Are at Every Age. I gave that one an 8 out of 10 stars. Excellent track. And then Evangeline, just an amazing track. It's the first track I ever heard by Cocteau Twins. It's what made me got interested in them. It made me a fan of them right away. I mean, I was watching, I can remember like I was watching it yesterday. I was watching 120 minutes and the video came on and I was just blown away. It was just so ethereal and so like nothing I ever heard before. It was magical. And I remember I recorded it and kept playing it. And then I heard it on the radio and I recorded it on the specific tape that I was always playing with tracks that I recorded off the radio. So I just love that track throughout the year. And then, of course I got the album and it was as a total, it was just as good. There's part of Evangeline that always kind of reminds me of sort of that 50s. I wouldn't say like a doo-wop, but if you know the track like Earth Angel, like from Back to the Future, Earth Angel. The guitars, the shimmering kind of guitar with the, like that's what kind of Evangeline has, and a lot of this album has that. It's just this kind of shimmering guitar that I feel like a lot of people think that I wouldn't say they made it up, and that's part of Shoegaze, and that's, they're part of the biggest bands in Shoegaze history, and sort of they kind of, maybe some people think that not necessarily they invented it, but they sort of perfected it, or that's kind of their sound. But when you kind of think back to like the 50s and early 60s and that kind of music, like this totally sounds like those kind of ballads that they had back in the 50s, just those kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure if those are big Gretsch guitars or what they have, but those, like the ones like you see in big Back to the Future, those big guitars, but they just have, those amps, those really archaic, I wouldn't say archaic, but, it's just very, very raw sounding amplifiers that they had for guitars back then. And it just really kind of, just it's very electric and gritty sound. And especially coming from those guitars and stuff like that. I would imagine, probably not a guitarist, but I would imagine the strings are probably a little bit different texture back then, maybe a little bit bigger. So just to maybe even a little bit more dynamic and louder sort of guitars. And with those, those older kind of amplifiers, just they kind of just really powerful, but still kind of the shimmering sound, just amazing. And Evangeline, I give 9.5 stars. I just think it's an awesome sound. One of because it's the first song I heard by Cocteau Twins. It definitely has a special place in in my thoughts. In my thoughts for all their work. But there's a lot of great tracks in Cocteau Twins catalog that I have like a strong eights and nines. Almost every album has a couple eights and nines in their album. Just there's so many good songs they've done. Track three, perfect example, Bluebeard. This is kind of there's two pop moments on this album. I feel like and Bluebeard and Squeeze Wax. Those two tracks are kind of. I was going to mention it later, but might as well mention it now. Like I think the differences between some people how they're going to rate Four Calendar Cafe against Heaven in Las Vegas might be two differentiators for me in comparing the two albums. The second half of each of the album is one, and then the second thing that I think is a big difference is how somebody would rate or compare the two pop songs of Bluebeard and Squeezewax. Some people like myself think they're phenomenal songs. Other people they might think they're a little bit too poppy, so they might not rate them as high as I might. So I think those two differences are a big difference between how you rate even Four Calendar Cafe against Heaven Las Vegas, but also even Four Calendar Cafe compared to all their other albums. It's really the second half of the album and how you would rate these two really, in my opinion, two of the most poppy Cocteau Twins the songs they ever did, Bluebeard and Squeezewax. I think Bluebeard is nearly like a pop perfection, just beautiful song. And one thing that's great about this album is that Liz, there's obviously a lot of her lyrics that you can understand, and they're in English, so that's like that kind of goes a little bit more towards her confidence. I feel like I was saying earlier with her singing, but considering that you do understand what she's saying, and then that kind of gives the album a little bit of I don't know. In some ways, it doesn't have the mystery of not knowing what she's saying, but in some other ways, like the last song, like "Purr," for example, just an emotional lyrics in there. And if you didn't know what the lyrics were in that song, maybe it wouldn't have the impact. I think the same thing about like Bluebeard and a couple other tracks where you can sort of understand what she's saying. So it can take the tracks to another level in a lot of ways. So it kind of depends on your opinion, really. But Bluebeard, 8.75 stars, amazing song. Track four is actually one of my least favorites, and it's still a 7. Theft and Wandering Around Lost, 7 stars out of 10. Track number 5, Oil of Angels. I give it 8 stars. Excellent. Underrated. I love the lounge feel in it too. It's always funny when I go through this album. Like when you hear Cocteau Twins songs, like the first 5-10 seconds, you're immediately like, "Oh, I love this song," right? And then sometimes you're like, "Oh, I'm not sure about like it's a good song." I mean, there's not too many Cocteau Twins songs I don't care for, but in this one, you're kind of like, "Oh, it's not like Bluebeard or Evangeline that really like catches you right away, or even know who you are at every age." Like there's that Cocteau Twins tracks that really like grab you. This one is really low key at the beginning, and again, like I say, like lounge feel. But it's so underrated when you actually just play the whole song. It sort of lulls you at the beginning, and you just forget how good the song is. And then that last stanza, right after the sort of keyboard or organ part, and then she sort of takes the vocal to another level. It's just amazing. It's almost like an out of body experience. And then it just ends with a beautiful fade out. Amazing. Awesome. 8 stars on that one. Squeeze Wax. One of my favorites on the album. 9.5. Tied with Evangeline for my favorite song on the album. And normally I'm the type of listener that likes like the tucked in B side or this kind of lesser known track or maybe the not so pop moments, but I just have to give it up for Bluebeard and Squeeze Wax. Those two pop tracks. I mean, they're amazing. They're straightforward. They're I wouldn't say in your face, but they're poppy. And the Squeeze Wax chorus. I mean, Liz singing in the foreground, and then she's in the background, and that man, it's just an amazing song. It's just so catchy and so clever, and it's just so perfect. You know what I mean? It's just when you think of like sometimes I overanalyze tracks. I feel like, it depends. I mean, everybody kind of maybe anybody who's a fan of music maybe overanalyzes some tracks sometimes. Maybe I do it even more so than other people. I'm sure I do, but it's funny when you like. Sometimes I give pop songs kind of a grief but I think everybody sort of has like cheesy moments in there, like like you like a Phil Collins track, or you like a really poppy Madonna song, or maybe you like Mariah Carey's "Do They Know It's Christmas" or not, or Christmas time. What song does she sing? I can't remember what's her Christmas song that she sings. Anyways, is it just Merry Christmas? Uh, anyways, you know what I'm saying? Just like that Mariah Carey song is just poppy. In some ways, it's like a perfect Christmas song. It's like, but it's Mariah Carey. You want to hate it, right? You're like, oh gosh, Mariah Carey. They play a song all the time, but it's a good Christmas song. It's poppy as heck, but it's a good song. Like this is how I feel about the Squeeze Wax and Bluebeard. Like I can't hate on it. Like they're great songs. My Truth, track number 7. Oh, I guess Squeeze Wax 9.5 stars. It's tied with Evangeline for best track on here. My Truth, excuse me, is really underrated, and it's just like angelic, and it's kind of like track number 5. I feel like the track order could have been a little bit better, and that's kind of why I don't necessarily give Four Calendar any extra points. The tracks are what they are, but a little bit of the order is I feel like could be better. Like it goes into Oil of Angels, which is kind of a chill track. Then it goes into Squeeze Waxes, which is really up tempo, and then goes back into My Truth, which is the slowest ballad on here. So it just kind of goes up, down, and back up real quick. And I feel like, and then the Essence is still kind of down. I feel like it should have went Oil of Angels, My Truth, Essence, and then bump back up with Squeeze Wax, go into Summerhead and down to Purr for a soft landing and have a little bit of a peak there, not up and down, up and down, up and down, and then end. Like, so that I feel like the track listing could have been a little better. My Truth, 8.25 stars. Amazing track. Awesome. I think it's probably the most underrated song on the album. And then you have Essence, which is tied with Theft and Wandering Around Lust for my 2 least favorite songs. Still a 7. And I think it's very good. Almost sounds aquatic, like she's some kind of like aquatic fairy, like coming out of the water and singing. Just love it with the acoustic kind of like the more I don't know if I'd say like wooden, but some of the percussion's a little bit more aquatic, watery sounding. Like really great stuff. Amazing. Track number 9, 7.5 stars for this one. A really nice direction, and Summerhead feels like a little bit of old and a little bit of where they're going. Like this is maybe even a little bit more indie on this track, but really probably one of the most unique tracks on this album. It's not your typical Cocteau Twins where it's sort of leaning into the pop or a little bit more moody and ballad and introspective. Like Summerhead is kind of like a really interesting balance of almost their old and their new style. Like I think the guitar is more edgy, a little bit more indie rock, like I was saying, and just a really cool track. And then track number 10, just a emotional song like Purr. What amazing song. You almost feel like Liz is encouraging through this. Like, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably one of the songs that has the most English of any Cocteau Twins songs, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you can understand all of it, and then you go to the lyrics, and sure enough, you can read all of them. But just the lyrics, I mean, reach out and you won't lose me. Destroy the objective, but still survive. You are angry and that's okay. I'm not afraid of your anger. What do you need? What do you want? I love you and I know you can figure it out. Wow, what amazing. And it's so cool because it sounds like she's, singing this for, maybe she has, I can't remember if she has a daughter or, I'm pretty sure she has a daughter if I'm not mistaken. And the love of a parent and their kids is just an amazing. Sometimes I feel like it's like an underrated love. Like you think of like people that get married or people that are in love. But the love of a parent and a child is just amazing. And for her to be this honest on the lyrics, just so emotional. I mean, and the way she fits her lyrics into the bars of a song, like you read it and you're like, oh, how'd she fit that in? Like, what do you need? What do you want? And the way she sings it, she sings like, what do you need? And the way she brings the what do you want into it, it's just very subtly in there where you barely don't even tell until you read the lyrics and you're like, oh, she says, what do you want also? And then she just comes back and says, I love you, and I know you can figure it out. Wow, just amazing. How she squeezes that into the bars and so it's just an emotional track. It's amazing. What a way to end the album. If Cocteau Twins didn't do Milk and Kisses and this was their last recorded song of their catalog, what a way to go out. Just amazing. Amazing track. 8.5 stars. So again, when I think about the overall of the album, first of all, I just think of the songs. Like there's so many great songs on here. The songwriting is very good. Great layering of the guitars. All the echoes and all the delays and all the processing going into all the shimmering guitars and stuff. It's just on another level. And Liz, again, is in top form. I feel like this is really like one of her, I mean, it's hard to say, is this her strongest? But I feel like definitely like this is her most confident. Like she's really coming out of her shell. I wouldn't say her shell, but I feel like she's really coming out like and being more confident. Great vocal work on here. There's some great vocal effects on here. Like her voice is doubling. Sometimes it's layered. Sometimes she's a little bit more in the foreground. Sometimes she has a total different vocal going on just after it or even before it. It's just amazing work. It's just so much good stuff on this album. Just amazing. And again, when I think about like comparing this album to the other ones in their career, I still got to review the other 5 or 6 albums. I think there is. I'll definitely do a top 40. Cocteau Twins, my favorite Cocteau Twins top 40 songs. Also do my favorite 10 like B-sides. I love some of the B-sides, some of the tracks that didn't get onto some of the albums. I do have their box set up there. You can sort of see it. Has all their singles in there. Some great stuff tucked away on some of those singles. So I'll definitely want to do a maybe top 10 on that. My favorite B-sides. So I can highlight those. So I'll definitely go into the list and then also rate the albums. But as I, sort of rate albums as I go, when I compare Heaven in Las Vegas, I'm already comparing the albums to albums, and I'm only 3 albums in. That's how good Cocteau Twins are. That's how good their albums are. And so I knew Blow Bell No would be really solid. And then when I went to Heaven in Las Vegas, like that was kind of the point where I could feel like I could, you sort of have that like starting point. If you're going to rate something and, you put something at a 5, you know where a 5 is, right? So you know where to go up and below that. Like I went high. I went straight to Heaven in Las Vegas on the second album. I was like, I need to compare everything to this album. And I think Heaven in Las Vegas, when I added up the scores on Heaven in Las Vegas, it got like a 76, 77. But I gave it an extra 3 or 4 points because I think that album is sort of, in some ways, the perfection of their sound. Like as they recorded, as they engineered it, as they mixed it, as they mastered it. Like that's like them perfecting their sound for me on Heaven in Las Vegas. But I think the tracks on For Calendar Cafe, I think overall are better. And it's mostly due to the second half of the CD. Like I have, not only do I have 3 of the 5 tracks above an 8 on For Calendar Cafe, and all 5 above 7. If I'm not mistaken, when I did Heaven in Las Vegas, there's 2 songs in the 6s on Heaven in Las Vegas, and then there's a couple in the 7s. I think there might be 1 to 8 out of the top 5, out of the last 5. So it's really about the second half. I love the first 5 tracks of Heaven in Las Vegas. Cherry Colored Funks, obviously Heaven in Las Vegas. I Want Your Ring. Some great tracks on there. Can't remember the other one too. I'm blanking on, I think it was the other single. It was Cherry Colored Funk, and can't remember the other track. But the first 5 tracks on Heaven Las Vegas, I think, match up pretty darn close with the best 5 even any of the best five of Four Calendar Cafe, but the second half of Four Calendar Cafe is more consistent. But again, I'll say that Heaven Las Vegas is a more, I wouldn't say a more concise album, more better flowing, but recorded wise, I think it's perfection. And a lot of people will like the earlier albums because they're a little bit more. It depends because if you like the post punk sound, you're gonna like Treasure, you're gonna like Garlands, right? If you like the little bit more polished as they went through the '80s, you might like Bluebell Knoll or Victorialand and how those are recorded. If you want a little bit of '90s recording and probably maybe even a little bit over I wouldn't say mastered, maybe a little bit overly produced. Like this album, I could see if somebody compared their older albums to this album, they said this one was overproduced. I can understand where they're coming from. Do I think this album is mastered loud or anything like that, or have any issues with that? No, but Heaven in Las Vegas, I feel like is kind of the perfect blend of the between the early and sort of the end, and just the most. I think the most. It's the most fine-tuned Cocteau Twins album for me. Like when I listen to Heaven Las Vegas, I don't question any of the recording, any of the mastering. It's just perfect. Perfect volume, perfect mixing on the track. Everything's recorded really well. Four Calendar Cafe is a little bit more out there, just a little bit more polished, maybe a little bit louder. Some of the tracks, the beats a little bit more, I think, pronounced. So it's just kind of depends on what your thoughts are on the album, but it's just so close. I gave Heaven Las Vegas an 80 out of 100. I give Cocteau Twins Four Calendar Cafe an 82. So I'm really surprised that I like Four Calendar Cafe better than Heaven Las Vegas, but for me it's because of the end of the album, and again it depends how much you like Squeeze Wax and Bluebeard. I think everybody likes Evangeline. Everybody likes the opener. There's a lot of great tracks on here. I think everybody will pretty much like Purr and one of the tracks in the middle, Oil of Angels or My Truth or Essence. I think a lot of people will probably have the album pretty similar to me. But if you're heavy in love with the first albums and you've been a fan since 83 and 84, 85, I can see how this album probably wouldn't be as much to your liking as those. But still I think Four Calendar Cafe is a classic. It's a great album. It's an emotional album too, and I really do. I wouldn't say I give it extra points for it but there is an extra deeper emotional aspect of you can actually for the first time. Get a whole song where you understand the lyrics, a whole bridge, a whole verse where you can, understand what she's saying. And so as much as I like the mystery, and not knowing what it is, so you can kind of think about what she's singing, but she did that for 6 albums, right? She did that for almost a full decade. So to go to 1993 and then finally hear some songs where you know all the lyrics and stuff, it just kind of makes it special in a different sort of way. So that kind of gives the album a little bit more. I don't know if it ties to the nostalgia for me because this is my first Cocteau Twins album, but it makes it special in a different way, if that makes sense. And I like that. It's something different. All the other albums, you can get a word here or there. Maybe you might understand a word or 2 words out of a whole song. Where here you're getting the whole song, and she's writing it, as honest as that as Per is, and she's talking to her child. It's amazing. Just having her give her advice on how to get through just life's issues or get through a tough times. It's just amazing, so personal, and such a great song. Such a great album, though. Four Calendar Cafe, amazing. 82 out of 100. Curious to know what your thoughts are on this album. What are your top 3 Cocteau Twins albums? And then I'll definitely move on to the next album. I'm not sure which one I'll do next, but then, I'll have to finish out Cocteau Twins and then, again, do my favorite albums in a row, do a top 40 favorite Cocteau Twins songs and a top 10 favorite B-sides of Cocteau Twins, and then I'll be done with Cocteau Twins. What enjoyable albums, though. I just love listening to their music. All right, if there's something that you'd like me to review, My email's down below. Just send me a suggestion and I will get back with you. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next video.
Electric Cafe.